No one wants in this campaign is Trump's endorsement. No one wants Trump to touch them.
Things are getting nasty. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney and his team wiping a part of the official Prime Minister's website. What are they hiding? What are they up to? Aside from an unbelievable double standard, we've got new polling data, Mark Carney blowing a bunch of money, Pierre Poilievre coming out with a new plan for the trades, among a bunch of other stuff. Let's jump into this. First up, we got new polling data, two different polls. This one, the liaison strategies coming from Simieritsch. This shows 40% liberals, 36% conservatives. There's some funny stuff in this data, which we're going to go through here, which Simieritsch has posted here. So I was actually digging into the full report, and I noticed this as well as what he said here. The Green is polling at 10% in Alberta, which is absolutely ridiculous. You can see Alberta right here. So we scroll down. So 9% in Alberta, Elizabeth May. There's no way that the Greens are polling at 9% in Alberta, especially when BC is 2%. You got to remember, Elizabeth May, Saanich Gulf Islands riding, which is a Green Party riding in British Columbia, has a seat in the House of Commons. There are no seats in the House of Commons for the Green Party coming from Alberta. So there's no way that BC would have less percentage than Alberta. If we look through the data too, we've got 1,500 people here, and you can see 65 plus and 50 to 64 accounts for 750 or 800 roughly people. This audience here is generally more politically active, but this is also the audience that gets programmed by the CBC. It's the older folk that have been watching CBC their whole life and haven't got off of it and are just brainwashed. There's no doubt that these polls are tightening, but like, how accurate is all this stuff? I mean, when you have 9% for a Green Party, it's like, what are you supposed to believe anymore? We got this one here. This is from the Leger poll showing favorability of each leader. This is interesting. So we've got Mark Carney here and Pierre Poilievre. You can see men and women, but what's most interesting is the don't know, I don't know section. There's a lot more women who are suspicious of Mark Carney. They don't quite have a read on the guy, and so they don't know. Depending on which way this swings, this makes a huge difference. You can see here, it's only 19% for Pierre Poilievre, which is ridiculous because Pierre's been out and about House of Commons on campaign trail for years now. Like, people should know by now who Pierre Poilievre is and what he's about. And men for Mark Carney is just despicable. Like, these are weak men who can't think for themselves. Come on, guys. You want a globalist banker to be your prime minister? Jeez. Now, if we take a look at this poll from One Persuasion, it shows 37% for Pierre Poilievre, 35% for Mark Carney, 14% for the NDP, and 7% for the Bloc. See, I would expect the Bloc to be sitting at around 7 to 9%, and the NDP typically 18 to 20. So Jagmeet being a complete buffoon and a terrible leader, basically the worst politician ever. 14%, yeah, that's believable. And 7%, maybe. I mean, if you look at the Bloc and their situation, they got the high vibes of separation again. Is Blanchette going to be losing support right now? I don't think so. So you'd expect them to be higher up, 9%. And we got this, Mark Carney billed taxpayers $296,000 on jet fuel for his European networking tour with his wife, despite not yet having a mandate from Canadians or a seat in Parliament. And not only that, to get humiliated by Macron and Starmer, both not wanting to do press conferences with the guy. Like, it's just embarrassing. He shows up, no one's out there to meet him. No one actually wants to talk with him. They come out, do a quick wave and a hug and a smile for the cameras, and then just buzz off. Nobody's taking this guy serious. He doesn't have a seat in Parliament. The whole thing is embarrassing. Now, what's really interesting, we've got a couple people digging this up. So how's this for transparency? Coming from Brian here, it says, it seems under Mark Carney, the PMO has done away with publishing daily itineraries. Here's archive shot when Trudeau was PM and one I took from the government website today. So there's the itinerary thing. I've gone on this many times to check where Justin Trudeau's going. They publish it the day of, so you know what he's doing that day. And here it is today. It's gone. It's no more. Mark Carney, draconian leader, authoritarian regime. He rules with an iron fist. He doesn't want anyone to know what he's doing, where he's going, because he's an absolute bonehead when he gets on the mic. He can't speak. He's got draconian policies. He doesn't want people to figure out who he actually is. Look within yourself, Brian. The peasants aren't privy to that information. We got Marty up north here posting the exact same thing. He had it bookmarked, tried to go to it, and you are not authorized. That page is gone. Mark Carney doesn't want anyone to know where he's going, so he can't be asked any questions. And we got Mark Carney himself. He came out with this, though, saying, my meeting with the Council on Canada-US Relations was focused on keeping Canada's economy strong in the face of unjust tariffs. We're ready to engage with the US on a comprehensive negotiation when Canada is shown respect as a sovereign nation. He thinks this is a position of power. Come on, Trump doesn't give a crap about this tweet, dude. I'm sorry, but it's not easy to respect Canada after the last decade of liberal wokeness. This is a good reply by Bratani. Only Pierre Poilievre commands the respect Canada is owed. Call the election. Moving over to Sudbury, Pierre Poilievre had a rally, delivered some new policies. It's a packed house in there. So I'm watching the Pierre Poilievre rally in Sudbury. You got to hear this. So he's given this story about how in Vancouver, there's guys who commit crimes every other day, all year long. There's 40 of them. They commit 6,000 crimes. And that's just them getting arrested. He goes on to talk about Penticton and how there's one guy who commits all the crime in the town. And a guy in the crowd over here yells out Trudeau.
In Penticton, there's one guy who does so much crime. One guy. That one guy in Penticton. No, it's not him. No.
Trudeau.
Another guy. Anyway, this guy does so much crime that when he's out of jail, the crime rate for all of Penticton actually goes up. It's incredible. But the good news is we know how to fix this problem. We keep the repeat offenders in jail. That's why common sense conservatives will repeal C-75 and bring mandatory jail, not bail.
This is only common sense. That's hilarious. The crowd tossing Trudeau in there. During the speech, he's dropped some new policies here regarding the trades. This is good stuff.
We're going to back the trades. It starts with bringing in tax fairness to allow traveling trades workers to write off the full cost of their food, transportation, and accommodation to go from one job site to another in order to get things built. Second, we will ensure that the lion's share of federal education and training dollars is directed not just to university education, but also to trades-based education. Absolutely. Our young people need to be encouraged to go into the trades because the trades are where the big paychecks are going to come in the future. And finally, I'm going to be sending a big, beautiful present to every single high school principal. It will be a box about the size of this stage. And in that box will be modules for every single licensed Red Seal trade for pre-apprenticeship programs that they can voluntarily take on and provide to their kids in the schools.
That's a great idea. These are great policies. This will help rebuild our country.
I know. All the academics are going to say that education is provincial, but there's nothing in the Constitution that says the Prime Minister can't send a present to the principals of all the high schools. That is totally allowed, and it's going to be fantastic. All of the incredible young trades workers, they're going to be making $200,000 a year. They're going to be working in mines. They're going to be building our homes, our office towers, our pipelines. These are the people that get it done, the folks who know how to dig stuff, build stuff, fix stuff, and make stuff. Those are the people we need more of.
Now, moving over to the Trump-Pierre Carney situation, we've got the CBC doing their best here, trying to do damage control now that Donald Trump has wrapped his arm around Mark Carney and pulled him into Team MAGA. They're scared because their liberal followers are probably melting down right now.
Now, this comes after weeks of the liberals saying that Pierre Poilievre likes Donald Trump, admires Donald Trump, echoes many of the things that Donald Trump has said. In fact, they've run ads, at least on social media, that show something that Donald Trump says and then something that sounds very similar that Pierre Poilievre says. So there's that narrative out there. And as we head into a very potential election campaign where the whole issue of who can stand up to Trump best will likely be a key factor in the election, framing Pierre Poilievre as like Donald Trump is obviously not a good framing for the conservatives. So if voters take Trump at his word, this is not a symmetry that's there, that he doesn't like Pierre Poilievre, and there's nothing to see here. A more cynical voter might see Trump's word.
A more cynical voter? If you take Trump at his word, just the way she's framing this, you're obviously spinning a narrative here.
Words more as an effort to help Pierre Poilievre by distancing himself from him. So I leave it to our viewers to decide how they interpret those comments.
Yeah, you leave it to your viewers, except you guys spend 8 hours a day spewing garbage, slandering Pierre Poilievre $1 million a day. Congratulations. You guys are only serving yourself and not the Canadian people. Trump's not helping the liberals. He's exposing their weakness, not ours. Exactly. He's exposing the liberals' weakness. The CBC is so desperate to not be shut down, it's funny. Now, there was the Voice of Reason on CBC. This is another panel, but James Moore, great conservative, came here to give him a dose of reality.
Is that Donald Trump endorsing Mark Carney, as Pierre Poilievre says, or is that Donald Trump being pressed by a Fox News host of like, why are you helping the Liberals in Canada, trying to spin it as, this is actually really just good for me? I mean, how do you view those comments?
I mean, it's a little bit of a column A, column B, probably column C, column D. Right?
Fair.
I mean, Donald Trump does not understand anybody in the world who is a conservative who doesn't fall in line and obey him blindly around the world. He doesn't get it. And Pierre Poilievre is one of those people. So he pushes back against anybody who doesn't drink the Kool-Aid and fall in line with the Donald Trump cult. And Pierre Poilievre is not that guy. Pierre Poilievre is a free trading guy who believes in lower taxes, getting Canadian resources to world markets, and he hasn't fallen into the mega stranglehold that American conservative Republicans, most of whom have in the modern era. And I think that frustrates him. And on the other hand, you know, he says that Canadians are nasty and they were really tough to negotiate with, and he doesn't like liberals. He said that literally yesterday. And then last night with Laura Ingraham, he says he'd prefer to deal with liberals. So like getting inside of Donald Trump's head and trying to understand what he thinks on any given day, I think is a fool's errand. What matters for Canada is, I think, the contest that's in front of us about who is the most serious, substantive, and experienced person to deal with Canada, protect Canada's interests going forward. And I think Pierre Poilievre has a very strong hand to play. Mark Carney may have the resume that a lot of people are drawn to, but when it comes to the cut and thrust of politics, I think he's shown himself to be very novice at this. And I think there's a window of opportunity there for Pierre Poilievre to gain the confidence of Canadians.
Just a question, though, on the Trump impact, because it's obviously a big reason why the polls we showed there, James, have completely, flipped around and reoriented. When we were discussing Danielle Smith, I think it was last week, you talked about that constituency she has to straddle in her Alberta political base. Poilievre has to do a version of that, though not to the same degree, that there is a portion of the Conservative coalition that does like Donald Trump. What sort of a challenge does that create for him in moments like this, in terms of, going one way to defend Canada without alienating 3, 4, or 5% of the coalition that could go to Max Bernier, that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, there is a cohort of Canadians who still like what Donald Trump says on culture war stuff, saying that there are two genders, being aggressive on immigration, other things, guns, social issues, etc. But that constituency of Canadians is evaporating day by day as people start losing their jobs and they start seeing Donald Trump mock the very existence of the country of Canada, talking about our prime minister being a governor, saying that Canada has no reason to exist at all as a country and we can't do it without the United States. I think the same conservatives who might have liked some of what Donald Trump was selling 6 months ago or 6 years ago, I think a lot of them get their backs pretty straightened up and they say, wait a minute, we're a proud and strong country and I'm a proud and strong Canadian and Donald Trump can get lost. I'm not interested in hearing that. So I think over time, the more that Donald Trump talks, that constituency that Pierre has to worry about is getting smaller and smaller.
James Moore is spot on here. They can't hide their bias. Defund these idiots immediately. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the next few days here on Polymarket and with new polling. We're running out of time here. The House is set to go back on Monday. Is Mark Carney going to pull the trigger and call an election, or what's he going to do here? We got this panel here with Scott Reed. This is Liberal Scott Reed, and listen to what he has to say on this.
Let's begin with the comments that Trump made about Pierre Poilievre and how it's being interpreted by Poilievre and the Liberals.
Oh, boy, that stirred up the hornet's nest, didn't it? Because what no one wants in this campaign that's coming very soon, this general election we're going to be having, is Trump's endorsement. No one wants Trump to touch them. No one wants Trump to bless them. That's the taint. You don't want to be anywhere near it, which begs the question. Is this what it looks like? Is Donald Trump actually endorsing Mark Carney? Or is he giving us a head fake and pretending to endorse Mark Carney because he really wants the Conservatives? So they're having this ridiculous fight. One thing we know for sure, this gets political tongues a-wagging, and boy, did the Conservatives jump on it fast. They look so thirsty. See, he's endorsing Mark Carney. This is the theater of politics, and we're going to get plenty of it for the next 30, 40 days.
Yeah, and I think it just goes to show that whatever Trump says, all the campaigns are going to glob onto it and spin it the way they want the Canadian public to see it.
Well, and this is going to be the defining characteristic of this federal campaign. We know that the ballot question is going to be, who do you think is best suited to deal with Trump? Who do you think is best suited to deal with these frictions with the United States? And that's why it does when he intervenes like this. That's why we will see so much action and energy around it. Just as we saw how it affected on a day-by-day basis the Ontario campaign that we went through just a few weeks ago. So all I can say with certainty is this. We will hear more from Trump, and it will also affect our daily news coverage, our daily attitude, and our daily sort of approach to this coming election campaign. This thing's going to be the Trump election, whether we like it or not.
It really is. It's weird how one man affects our entire country. And it's weird how one man scares so many Canadians that they'll go back and vote Liberal, even though the Liberal government has been destroying lives of Canadians for 10 years. Are Canadians really that dumb? Election is going to tell us.
Speaking of this campaign, and we don't know when it's going to be, I'd like to get your take on that in just a second. But whenever the election is called and the campaign starts, we've learned that the Conservatives are not going to be allowing media to travel with Pierre Poilievre. What do you make of this?
I don't like it. And there's a lot of legitimate reasons for this. We've seen the ability of media organizations to pay. We've seen the willingness of media organizations to pay to be part of what we call, the media plane, the media bus, the media tour. We've seen their willingness to chalk up and to guarantee their presence on campaigns diminish over the course of the last number of years as, mainstream media financial models have shifted. But there is a fundamental underlying principle here, which is that those who are seeking to be prime minister and to run the country ought to subject themselves on a constant and consistent basis to hard probing and questioning.
Yeah, Mark Carney is not subjecting himself to that at all. He's avoided all questions during the Liberal leadership race. He's avoiding questions now. He can't have this as a double standard. That's what's going on here. Not to mention the CBC dishing out propaganda at $1 million a day, slandering Pierre for the last many years. Our country is a draconian crap show at this point. So if Pierre doesn't want these paid off woke losers on his plane, I support him on it. He's going to be putting out his own media. He doesn't need paid off shills from CBC trying to do gotcha questions when he's on the campaign trail. And I saw this article on the CBC. They're just trying to make him look bad with it, as usual. That's why it is so bizarre that Rosemary broke script. There's a couple events here in the last kind of week and a half where she's broken script. Something's going on with Rosemary Barton where maybe she just feels like a failed paid off shill now and she actually wants to be a journalist again. I don't know. Canadian politics is very unpredictable these days.
This will mean that there will be less media scrutiny of the Conservative campaign. Already we see that they frequently give preference, to online media organizations who have less rigorous editorial practices or openly partisan impulses. And
come on, Scott, this is so bad. Mark Carney will not even let anyone ask him a question unless it comes from CBC. He knows that too. He's not stupid. Scott Reed has been around the block many times. Is he getting briefcases from the Liberal Party to say such crap?
And, whether it's prime ministers who are Liberal that try to duck media press conferences, or whether it's Conservatives saying, we don't want a media plane, we'll just deal with a couple of local media here and there and call it a day. This is not good. Democracy runs best in the presence of sunshine. Part of the job of reporters, whether politicians like it or not, is to ask them tough questions and to shine that beam of sunlight into their campaign.
Maybe you should tell that to Jagmeet Singh, who won't take questions from Rebel News when Rebel News is standing there asking him a question. Or Mark Carney refuses to take any questions from anyone unless they pre-approve all the questions. And we've got Canadians who registered to go to his events. If they look up these Canadians and don't like what they have to say on their own personal Facebook pages, they roll in cops to throw these people out of Mark Carney events. You want to talk about democracy? Our government has been compromised by the Chinese communist dictatorship.
Lastly, I do want to ask you about the timing of the election, because I think a lot of people are asking when it's going to be, what has to happen before that call is made. Can you give us some insight into what could be going on behind the scenes with the Liberals, with Carney's camp, and when we might see that call come down?
I think you're going to see within days. I think that with the resumption of Parliament scheduled for Monday, it's a safe bet that the new Prime Minister isn't going to want to have Parliament resume because he then loses control of his own future. His ability to govern and the timing of the election would then be dictated by the opposition parties. They'll defeat him in the House of Commons. So my suspicion is he's going.
It doesn't seem like that. It seems like Jagmeet wants to buy more time because he's destroyed the party, and he's hoping that if he just keeps bellowing out the same garbage he's been doing for the last few years, that suddenly the NDP get more support. They might get a bit more support because of Mark Carney being endorsed by Donald Trump, but it won't be because of anything Jagmeet Singh did.
And two, as we've seen this week, continue to make a few announcements, take some steps, try to reinforce the notion of himself as a new prime minister, representing change, looking prime ministerial, foreign trips, moving up to Nunavut, talking about key priorities. And then he's going to pull the plug on this thing and force the question around Trump, around tariffs, and around our economic security. And I'm guessing that that's going to happen this weekend, and we'll have an election at the end of April.
And lastly, a quick answer, please. Would you predict a short campaign or a long campaign?
I think it'll be a short campaign. It could be as short as 36, 37 days or as long as 51. I think we're going to see a short campaign. But Carney's got momentum. You want to maintain that when you're running.
Does he have momentum, though, after Trump is endorsing him, bringing him under his MAGA wing? That's the real question, because liberals don't want to be associated with Donald Trump, and now Trump is associating himself with Mark Carney. Well, this race is definitely tightening. It's going to be a nail biter, that's for sure. Question is now, is the polling data accurate that we're seeing? Is there bias in there? Are these pollsters calling too many city centers and not calling the towns and the cities, the working class, different hours where you would get more conservatives that would answer the phone? What is Mark Carney going to do? Is he going to try to ride this momentum and call an election immediately? Or do liberals have other data showing that he wouldn't win? This is all going to be revealed in the next 4 days.